Hello everybody, my name is Spoons Rattling, and just to add on to the things that have happened this week, I'm now sick, alongside the issues happening with my drive, so it's really not going my way this week. But to continue with our grotmas videos, we of course have the Tyranids next. This detachment is the Warrior Bioform Onslaught, and it is clearly based around, well, warrior forms, which would be the Tyranid warriors, as we see in the detachment rule. Tyranid warriors, which are explained below, and winged Tyranid prime have a 5+ invuln. Now, Tyranid warriors are decently tough already. They're big, chunky, multi-wound models, though their save is rather mediocre. So giving them a 5+ invuln is rather nice, just to make them a little tougher. Though given their 4+ save, it's pretty extra handy against things that are AP2 or higher. So in terms of keywords, Tyranid warriors with ranged bioweapons and Tyranid warriors with melee bioweapons are given the Tyranid warriors keyword and the battle line keyword. And while such a unit is not battle shock, Tyranid warrior models in that unit have an OC of 3. So obviously this is a pretty solid rule. Being able to swarm the board with Tyranid warriors is pretty cool, because Tyranid warriors are just cool models, which is the most important thing really. And having extra OC is pretty nice on things as just big model-wise as Tyranid warriors. They can very easily take up a lot of space on an objective and make it impossible for things to get on it, while of course having a high OC. We're going to move on to the enhancements. We have Synaptic Tyrant for 10 points. This is for a Nero Tyrant, so the giant brain bug from Leviathan. During the declare battle formation step, the bearer can be attached to a Tyranid warriors unit. I think this is okay. I would still say he's far better with Zoanthropes, and that power is only exacerbated by a stratagem we'll see later. Though I think still having +1 to hit and wound with Tyranid warriors can be very interesting, especially with those ranged weapons like Venom Cannons, which really appreciate the +1 to wound. And the melee Tyranid warriors really appreciate +1 to wound with their twin linked and everything. Moving on to Ocular Adaptation for 20 points. This is for a winged Tyranid prime. Each time a model in the bearer's unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. Probably a little expensive for that cost, but is very useful, or rather expensive for that buff. But given Tyranids mainly hitting on 4s, adding 1 to the hit roll is very nice. Obviously, you'd want to do this with the ranged Tyranid warriors, though I suppose if you're running a unit of gargoyles, getting +1 to hit is solid enough. But for 20 points, it's probably a little pricey, though not the worst. And then Sensory Assimilation is also 20 points for a winged Tyranid prime. Each time an attack targets the bearer's unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. Solid enough to double down on stealth for a big unit of Tyranid warriors, though again, probably a little pricey for 20 points. And then the real good one is Elevated Might. This is for a Tyranid model only. The bearer's unit is eligible to declare a charge and return which it advanced. So this, I actually wouldn't say is very good on Tyranid warriors. It's great on Tyranid warriors is what I mean, but the main thing I would use this on would be Gene Stealers, because with their scouts 8 inches, it'll be very easy for them to make it a first turn charge out of their scouts, and then just rip things up, because everyone knows Gene Stealers do a lot of damage, but it's just the getting them there that's the problem. Overall, though, I think these detachments are totally fine. I'd say that Elevated Might is easily the most standout, and the other 3 have their places, just not the most interesting. Moving on, we have stratagems. Synaptic Amplification is first. This is 1 command point when in your shooting phase or fight phase. 1 Tyranid unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase. If that unit is a Tyranid warriors unit, select up to 1 Endless Multitude unit from your army that is not battle shocked within 6 inches of it. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in those units make an attack, reroll a wound roll of 1, and if it is a Tyranid warriors unit, reroll a hit roll of 1 as well. This is, of course, very solid, mainly with ranged Tyranid warriors, as the reroll 1s to wound is redundant on melee warriors. All their weapons are twin linked. This can also be pretty handy with some Hormagaunts nearby, or Termagaunts, depending on what you wish to use. Or if you're running a huge swarm of gargoyles, you could sort of double up on the leadership abilities of a winged Tyranid prime, and use that to buff another unit of gargoyles that may not have a character leading it. But in melee, rerolling hit rolls of 1 also I don't believe is the most useful, as that's one of their special rules, so I would mainly use this with things like venom cannons. Next we have spontaneous corrosion, and this is a very spontaneous hyper corrosion, and this stratagem I know is very, very powerful and would be probably the main reason for bringing this detachment. This is 1 command point in your shooting phase. What did I just do? I just opened Copilot, shut up. 1 Tyranid unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight. Until the end of the end of the phase, add 2 of the strength characteristics of ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit, and add 1 of the strength characteristics of melee weapons equipped by Tyranid warriors and winged Tyranid prime models in your unit. Now, while this part here is wait, hold on, I think I've misread this. Hold on. Until the end of the phase, add 2. Well, no, okay. All right. Sorry, I just got a little confused. So, whatever unit you use this on gets +2 strength to their ranged weapons, and Tyranid warriors get the +1 strength to their melee weapons. Very solid on ranged Tyranid primes and normal Tyranid primes for that matter. Or, Tyranid warriors is what I mean. But the main thing this excels with is Tyranid shooting. You could give this to zoanthropes to bring them up to strength 14, which is a huge breakpoint, not only against things like Knight Tyrants, or Dominus class Knights, and things like Baneblades. It's also really useful as going from wounding on 4s to wounding on 3s is a rather nice increase in damage output. So just making that more consistent is very useful. This is also very good on things like Exocrines to get them up to strength 11, which could help them a lot against things like Predators, Leman Russ tanks, and also just in general make them more effective against things like Terminators. I'd say this is the best stratagem here, and is quite solid, but mainly just, funnily enough, not even for the Tyranid primes, or Tyranid warriors. Restorative Impulse is 1 CP. You use this in your command phase. 1 Tyranid warriors from your army that is below starting strength. Turn 1 destroyed model, excluding character models, to your unit. For 1 command point, this is simply a pretty edge case, I think, because Tyranid warriors, the melee ones, are more expensive. And even then, I believe they only come in at, around 27 points? 25, sorry, I'm completely out of sorts today. With 25 points for 1 command point isn't the worst, but it's not the most useful. I would really only use this if it's going to flip an objective in your favor, which it very often could. So just keep that in mind. Next we have Synaptic Micronodes. This is in your movement phase. 1 command point, select 1 Tyranid warriors unit from your army. Select 1 objective marker you control that your unit is within range of. That objective marker remains under your control until your opponent's level of control over that objective marker is greater than yours at the end of a phase. This is an interesting sticky objectives for 1 command point, and it can be very useful on something that is far-flung, or even something that will be heavily contested, just to make sure it remains yours no matter what, and is always useful to have on command. Parasitic Payload is used in your shooting phase for 1 command point. This is for 1 Tyranid warriors with ranged bioweapon unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase. Till the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by the model in your unit have the Ignores Cover ability. After your unit is resolved at shooting attacks this phase, select 1 enemy unit hit by 1 or more of those attacks. Till the end of the turn, models in that unit can have the benefit of cover. This is a fairly solid ability in my opinion. Tyranid shooting in general can be a little bit low AP, so getting rid of their ability to use cover is very useful. And if you wanted to go full on stacking buffs, you could use this and an Exocrine to mark a unit for death with reroll 1s to hit and Ignores Cover, which would of course be a very powerful buff for your unit like Zoanthropes. And then finally we have Synaptic Shield for 1 command point in your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. This can be for 1 Tyranid warriors unit from your army that will select as a target of 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks. If that unit is a Tyranid warrior unit, select up to 1 Endless Multitude unit from your army that is not battle shocked within 6 inches of it. Till end phase, each time a ranged attack targets one of those units, if the strength characteristic of that attack is greater than the toughness characteristic of that unit, subtract 1 from the wound roll. This is a super powerful defensive buff, not only for a Tyranid warrior unit, but something like a big swarm of Hormagaunts in front of them. As a unit like that, of course, really appreciates the -1 to wounds just to make them a little bit tougher to remove, and makes things like bolters and heavy bolters significantly less effective at clearing out hordes of that size. And on a unit as beefy as Tyranid warriors themselves, it can be quite nice to fend off things like power weapons that may be slightly higher strength, or things like power fists, which will lose a good amount of their effectiveness against them. For one command point, I think this is quite solid. I think the main strength from this detachment is truly in elevated might and some of its stratagems. Hyper corrosion is easily the best, but I think parasitic payload, synaptic micronodes, synaptic shield, and even synaptic amplification have their places and uses. Though I do think getting battle line Tyranid warriors is at least an interesting thing, as it's sort of a different way to try and overload your opponent, as you can include quite a lot of Tyranid warriors with them being battle line, with how relatively cheap they are for how big they are as models. Though, of course, I would say the stars of this show and this detachment are, funnily enough, Zoanthropes and Gene Stealers, not necessarily the warriors. But still, I think this detachment is fine. Out of the 3 shown so far, I'd say it's the least interesting, though. Anyways, I have been Sick Spoons Rattling. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.